Explore the stories of individuals like John, Kirsten, and Ricky, who faced injustice and spent years in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Imagine being blamed for something you didn't do and fighting for your innocence. What went wrong in the justice system? And how did these people finally find freedom? Let's unravel these compelling tales together. John Bunn. Meet John Bunn, who went through a tough time for 27 years because he was wrongly blamed for a crime he didn't commit. Imagine being just 14 years old when the police, led by Detective Louis Scarcella, arrested him in Brooklyn, New York. John spent 16 years in prison, and then another 11 years on parole, always shouting, "I'm innocent!" Guess what? He was right. After loads of fighting, John's conviction was canceled because Detective Scarcella messed up. And they didn't even have a good reason to arrest John back then. They got the wrong guy! Imagine spending so many years trying to tell everyone, "Hey, I didn't do it!" Finally, people listened, and John got his name cleared. But just before leaving the courtroom, he shared a moment with the judge. A big deal after all those tough years. Now, John didn't stop there. He decided to sue the city of New York and Detective Scarcella for what they put him through. It's like saying, "You made a big mistake and I'm not letting it slide." Think about it. 27 years is a super long time, especially when you didn't do anything wrong. John's story reminds us that sometimes the system messes up, but if you keep saying the truth, things might just turn around. David Ranta. Let's talk about David Ranta, who went through 22 years behind bars for a crime he didn't do in Brooklyn, New York. Detective Louis Scarcella, the same guy from other messed-up cases, arrested him. They put David in a lineup run by Scarcella, and surprise, he got picked as the shooter. But guess what? Years later, the person who pointed fingers revealed that the detective told him whom to pick. No real proof linked David to the crime, and it seems like the stuff shown to the jury was made up. David got a crazy sentence of 37.5 years to life. After spending more than 2 decades in jail, the folks who said he did it admitted they were forced to lie. The court finally said, "Hey, David, you're free." He hugged his family and walked out without those handcuffs. Afterward, he got $2 million from the state and a whopping $6.4 million from the city of New York. Susan Mellon. Now let's talk about Susan Mellon. She got a life sentence in Los Angeles, California, without any chance of getting out. Her crime? Well, it turns out she didn't do anything. Imagine being 42, taking your kid to McDonald's for a Happy Meal, and bam, arrested for a murder you didn't commit. Crazy, right? Her conviction was all because of someone who said she confessed to the murder. Susan spent a whopping 17 years in jail until they found out the person was a big liar and couldn't be trusted. Finally, Susan got her justice. Her case was thrown out, the judgment was canceled, and the case was dismissed. Imagine going from tears to jumping for joy. When Susan got out, she took her daughter back to McDonald's for that long-awaited Happy Meal. California even gave her almost $600,000 to make up for it. And the city of Los Angeles said sorry with a $12 million payout to Susan Mellon. Imagine what a roller coaster these stories are. From being locked up for no reason to finally getting justice and some money to make up for the lost time. Life can be really strange sometimes. Luis Vargas. Meet Luis Vargas, a guy who got into big trouble for things he didn't do. When he was 29 and living in Los Angeles, California, the police said he did 3 bad things to people. They thought the same person did all of them because the stories sounded similar. Poor Luis got convicted and had to spend 16 years in jail. But then, a group called the California Innocence Project checked some special evidence, like DNA, from the clothes of one person hurt in the attacks. Guess what? It didn't match Luis at all. That means he didn't do those things, and he's innocent. Imagine how Luis felt when they said, "Hey, you didn't do it!" He didn't say much, just sat there quietly. After all that mess, Luis only had one thing on his mind: a big hamburger. His wish was simple. "Mom, get me a big hamburger and let's eat together." And you know what? When Luis was finally free, He got almost $900,000 from the state to make up for all the trouble. It's crazy how things can go wrong, and people can get blamed for stuff they didn't do. But when the truth comes out, it's like a big weight lifted off their shoulders. Luis can finally enjoy that hamburger and a bit of cash to start fresh. Life can be tough, but it's good to know there are people out there helping to make things right. Daniel Villegas. Meet Daniel Villegas, a guy who got into big trouble for something he didn't do. Imagine being only 16 in El Paso, Texas, and having a detective threaten you with beatings and the death penalty if you don't say you did something. Scary, right? Well, that's what happened to Daniel. They made him sign a paper saying he did a really bad thing, but he tried to take it back a few hours later. Too late, though. So, Daniel ended up in big trouble, and the only thing they had against him was that paper he signed. The jury couldn't decide if he did it or not, so they had another trial. This time, they said he did it, and he got a life sentence. Imagine spending 18 years in jail for something you didn't do. But then, someone smart looked at everything again and said, "Wait, this doesn't seem right." They threw out the verdict, and Daniel got to be out of jail like, phew. While he was waiting to see what happens, Daniel got married and started a family. But then came the third trial, the big day where they decide if he goes home for good or back to jail forever. Can you picture how nervous he must have been? The jury read their decision, and guess what? They said, "Not guilty." That means Daniel is a free man now, no more rules to follow. Imagine how happy he and his family must be. Daniel even said bye to all the conditions they put on him. Now he can go wherever he wants. And you know what? Daniel is so not okay with what happened to him. He's thinking of telling the city of El Paso, "You did me wrong," and he might even take them to court. It's a wild ride, but Daniel's story shows that even when things look bad, there's hope that someday things will be okay again. Ricky Jackson. Meet Ricky Jackson, a guy who got stuck in prison for more than 39 years for something he didn't do. Picture being just 18 in Cleveland, Ohio when they arrested him. The main person who said Ricky did something was a 12-year-old kid named Eddie Vernon. But here's the twist. Eddie didn't really see anything. He later told everyone that the police pushed him into saying Ricky did it. At first, they wanted to give Ricky the death penalty. Imagine that. But after 2 scary years on death row, they changed it to life in prison. Fast forward almost 40 years, and Eddie, who's now 52, finally said the truth. He never saw Ricky do anything wrong. Can you believe it took so long? Once Eddie spilled the beans, they let Ricky go. And you can imagine how happy he must have felt. Finally free. The moment he heard he could leave, it must have felt like a dream. And when he stepped outside, it was probably like seeing the world for the first time. Ricky even got $1 million from the state for all the time he lost, and they threw in another $2.65 million for the money he couldn't make because he was stuck in prison. Life can be tough, right? But Ricky's story shows that sometimes, even after a super long time, things can turn around. It's like a big win in a world full of challenges. Good luck, Ricky. Enjoy every moment of your freedom. Kirsten Lobato. Meet Kirsten Lobato, a woman who spent 16 years in prison for a murder she didn't do. Imagine being just 18 when they said you did something so terrible. They thought she killed a homeless man in Las Vegas. First, they said she did first-degree murder, but later, they changed it to something called voluntary manslaughter. That's like saying she did it, but maybe not as bad. After being stuck in prison for 16 long years, they had another look at her case. And guess what? They found proof that on the day the man died, Kirsten was far away with her family. That means she couldn't have done what they said she did. Can you believe it took so long for them to figure that out? The moment she stepped outside as a free woman, you can imagine how happy and excited she must have been. Feeling overwhelmed, grateful, and just so happy. That's what Kirsten said. After going through all that, she decided to stand up for herself. She's suing the Las Vegas police because, let's be honest, this should have never happened. And she's still waiting to get compensated for all those years she lost. Kirsten's story shows that even after a super long time, the truth can come out. Imagine how it feels to finally be free after so many years. Kirsten, enjoy every moment. You deserve it. These stories highlight the incredible challenges they faced, being wrongly accused and imprisoned. Imagine the emotional roller coaster of fighting for justice. How did these injustices occur, and what kept these individuals hopeful? Subscribe to our channel for more content like this.